Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hope you're all doing well, inshallah. This evening, we're going to continue with the book that we're covering, William Dalrymple's The Anarchy, The Relentless Rise of the East India Company. We're on chapter number 7, of which the title is The Desolation of Delhi. We're going to come back to our old friend, Shah Alam. On the 12th of April, 1771, Shah Alam returns or makes his return after exile of more than 12 years to becoming the emperor once again of Delhi. The Mughal capital of Delhi is where he has set his sights upon. Will he make it? Will this be the final time the Mughal Empire breathes before it sees its end? So Shah Alam was advised by the company, if you remember, not to go for Delhi. It wasn't a risk worth taking, even the company was now supporting him as a puppet. But he'd given up on the company. He'd given up on a company ever honoring its many promises of giving him an army, or even just giving him an armed escort to help him reconquer the capital of Delhi. And behind this apparently benign concern for the emperor lay a deeper anxiety for the company. The company was a little bit anxious about him making a move for Delhi as well. And his announcement was entirely unexpected that he was making his way to Delhi. The company wanted to keep the emperor in their control, so that would legalize and legitimize whatever decisions they made, because he was in essence, he was their puppet, right? He was the puppet emperor. And if he was to conquer Delhi, they were fearful of the consequences, because of course the Marathas were there, and they were the most formidable rivals of the company in India. So if the Marathas got sided with him, that would affect the company as well. The Marathas, by the way, they dominated the entire west coast of the subcontinent, and they were now contemplating additional influence. Okay, and if they had the emperor in their hands, as opposed to having him in the hands of the company, that would legitimize the Marathas even further as well. The company officials warned Shah Alam of the Marathas, or placing too much confidence in the Marathas. But really, this decision that Shah Alam made of making his way across to Delhi was really the company's own fault as well. They didn't treat him very well. Ever since he arrived in Allahabad, 6 years earlier, that nothing was really working for him. They weren't treating him very well. So in 1766, even, for example, Shah Alam had gone as far, and this is mentioned in the book, to sending an envoy to his fellow monarch, George III. So he sent an envoy all the way across to England, one sovereign to another, so one king to another king, to appeal to him for help, right? Considering, and I quote, considering the sincerity of friendship and nobility of heart of my brother in England. In his letter, Shah Alam had offered to recognize the king's overlordship in return for being installed in Delhi by the company troops. Okay, but the emperor's letters to the king had been intercepted by Clive. Remember Clive? Along with a gift, he gave him a ceremonial gift of rare jewels, which would have been worth £1 million today. Okay, so what happened to those jewels? The letter and the jewels never reached the king. In fact, the book says Shah Alam's presents to the kings were given on his return to London by Clive himself, as if he'd given it. So rather than giving the idea that, which was Shah Alam had given this, Clive gave the impression that I had bought it for the king as well. And the letter never really reached the king in England. So Shah Alam did try to reach out to the King George III in England to say, look, you need to help me here as well. Anyway, besides this, in India, things were changing as well. There were dramatic shifts taking place, which spurred the emperor on. He felt there was an opportunity now for him to retain or reclaim the emperor, being the emperor of the Mughal Empire as well. So, for example, In the decade that followed the defeat of the Marathas at Panipat in 1761 and the death of 35,000, an entire generation of Maratha warriors and leaders, the Afghans had the upper hand in Hindustan from roughly 1761 to 1770. So the Afghans would come from the north. And in 1762, Ahmad Shah Durrani had ousted the person who was Shah Alam's nemesis. Remember, in the previous chapters, we talked about Imadul Mulk from the Red Fort. So they'd taken over Delhi from Imadul Mulk, and he'd put there somebody called Najib ud-Dawla. He was a Rohilla from Afghan birth, and Najib has started his Indian career as a humble sort of horse dealer, but made his way up. Najib was undefeated but unchallenged, but not unchallenged master of Delhi for 9 years. And then after Najib died, his unruly son and successor Zabita Khan, who would become, in essence, the ruler of Delhi. Okay, so Mughal honor was now at stake. Even the Queen Mother, who was there in prison, Zinat Mahal, wrote to her son, said, "You need to come here and you need to take charge." So he found himself in a situation where the company wasn't helping him, and he wanted to take back Delhi, take back the empire. There was warfare. There was things happening in Delhi which he felt would give him an upper hand as well. And Zabita Khan was there, and Zinat Mahal had the Queen Mother had also written to him that you need to come here and take back Delhi. So Ahmad Shah Durrani, for example, the one who'd put Najib Dawla as in charge, had now gone back to Afghanistan. And so in 1766, the Marathas launched their first attack, and they'd taken they'd launched their first ever attack as well. And they had two particular leaders that were significant. One of them was Mahaji Sindhya, who I'll talk about later on. He'll come back into the story. Another person was Tukoji Holkar. These two people were people that were helping, or were someone that Shah Alam would see the Marathas, these two people as leaders, would see as people that could help him reclaim Delhi, even though they couldn't be trusted in many ways as well. So, for example, a secret message from one of the Marathas, Mahaji Sindhya, reached Shah Alam and offering him protection if he was to come home. So Marathas had taken Delhi back, and they'd promised Shah Alam that if you come back to Delhi, we'll give you protection as well, and said, let's explore the possibility of an alliance, right, between the Mughals, or what was left of the Mughals, and the Marathas as well. Now, who would become the emperor's commander in terms of the army, managing the army? And it fell upon a very important person in this stage of the story, someone called Mirza Najaf Khan. This guy was really, really instrumental in the success of Shah Alam. Shah Alam's success from now on was very much down to Mirza Najaf Khan and his ability to rapidly take vast amount of land back and conquer much as well. Now, very few people believe that Shah Alam actually had a chance of taking Delhi back, and any hope of re-establishing Mughal rule there, or getting any sort of, even if he was, would he really get independence for the Marathas, right? Would they really honor their alliance with him and allow him to become the emperor as well? Because the Marathas wanted to use Shah Alam for their own ends, to legitimize their activities, just like the East India Company were using Shah Alam to legitimize their activities as well. But anyway, Shah Alam managed to get Najaf Khan as the man who would help him. So Najaf Khan was a very important commander that helped Shah Alam as well. And when the emperor was making his way across to Delhi, he also met Nawab Shuja ad-Dawla, who we've talked about in the previous videos as well. And they never come face to face since they both had to flee from the battlefield of Buxar 7 years later as well. Shuja himself tried to dissuade Shah Alam from progressing to Delhi, saying that, look, this is a trap. You shouldn't do this. It's not a very good idea to try and take back Delhi as well. In any case, the emperor on the 2nd of May headed westwards towards towards Delhi. He was met by a few company officials as well, who still tried to dissuade him. He reached the last sort of port or place where the company had something there, and after that, it was all sort of heading towards Delhi and towards the Marathas as well. And they reached, they were making their way across. On the 18th of November, the person who he'd written to, the Marathas, one of the Maratha lead soldiers, Mahaji Sindhya, met him at the imperial camp. So they'd been corresponding, and Mahaji has said, we'll make an alliance with you. The Maratha said, we'll make an alliance with you. There was always doubt whether they would do this, but he actually did. He actually prostrated himself before the emperor, and then they together, the Marathas and Shah Alam, tried to think about a strategy and work out their plans as well. And eventually, he managed to take Delhi back, and he was the Mughals. He was able to end 12 years in exile, and the Mughals were back on the peacock throne, so they'd come back to the throne as well. The mission now for Shah Alam in January 1772 was now to the reconquest of the empire, and to take over the areas around Delhi. But he had to get rid of and deal with Zabita Khan, who'd been put there by the Afghans, if you remember, as well. And so he sent his general Mirza Najaf Khan and the Marathas leader Mahaji Sindhya to attack and kill Zabita Khan as well. And Zabita Khan eventually fled and left as well. What is really interesting now is when he fled, they managed to capture his son. Now, his son, his name is very, very important, and he'll play an important role in the ending of Shah Alam, if you like, as well. He had a son called Ghulam Qadir. Ghulam Qadir was among the prisoners and hostages which were brought back. Although his father Zabita Khan had run away, Ghulam Qadir was still there as well. And then the emperor brought him back, and basically the emperor brought him up in the royal palace. And this was something that he would later on deeply regret, because as you'll see, Ghulam Qadir turned against the emperor, even though the emperor gave him the luxury, and he protected the boy, and he gave him everything in the royal palaces, right? So the son Ghulam Qadir of Zabita Khan, who was brought up in the empire, who was captured but turned into the emperor felt that he was someone that he could bring up as his own child. In fact, there was gossip going around at the time that there was some sort of love relationship between the boy and the emperor as well. Anyway, I'll come back to Ghulam Qadir, but I want to point that out because he's someone that will come back to haunt Shah Alam later on as well. Remember, the city, because Delhi had been plundered, it had suffered warfare, incessant warfare, regular warfare. There was conquest taking place since 1739. It was really a ruined place as well. There was a fragile alliance between the Mughals and the Marathas, and it was really fragile. It was sort of it wasn't very strong because they were fighting over the spoils of India as well. Now, Shah Alam's Delhi expedition ended in one outcome no one had foreseen. Now, the Marathas had helped him get power in Delhi, but they now began to withdraw. The Marathas began to withdraw, and they were too busy fighting amongst themselves as well. And he found himself, Shah Alam, no longer as a powerless puppet for the first time, but he was a sovereign of his own dominion. And he had one of the greatest generals under him, right? And as a commander as well. So that worked in his favor. Mirza Najaf Khan was a great general who was very, very useful. And he was now 45 years old, Shah Alam, and late middle age by Mughal standards. And he was very grateful for what he had. Okay, but he had a miraculous outcome. He'd become effectively reinstated, if you like, as a Mughal ruler after an absence of 12 years, and it was all thanks to Mirza Najaf Khan's great fighting abilities as well. Um, and so people started to hear about him. People saw rumors were spreading around that the emperor's back, he's being successful. So people started to flock to the ancestral center of Delhi, and even veterans from across India started to look for employment in Mirza Najaf Khan's army as well. So it seemed like things were working in his favor as well. Um, and so the Mughals are really ready with Najaf Khan to take back that empire, right? Shah Alam and his commander, Mirza Najaf Khan, were ready to take back that empire as well. Now, he'd taken over lots of land, lots of strongholds of Mughal heartlands, and he brought a lot of the unruly servants of the emperor under control as well. And the Mughal empire was beginning to emerge from its coma after 40 years of defeat. For the first time in 4 decades, Delhi was once again the capital of a small empire as well. While Mirza Nazaf Khan was going around sorting things out for Shah Alam was busy in Delhi re-establishing his court and trying to bring life back to the dead capital of Delhi as well. Obviously, as you can imagine, if you've read anything about history and royalty and palace intrigue, people began to spread rumors that Najaf Khan, who is the emperor, might even dethrone him. And so there was, because obviously he was from a Shia background as well. So there was rumors that he would be, once he's finished with taking a lot of your land back, he'll come after you as well. But Shah Alam paid no interest to this. What his real problem was, by the way, wasn't an army, but it was money. It wasn't really intrigue in the palace or internal divisions, but he just didn't have the money. So he appealed to Warren Hastings, who had warned him not to do this. And he didn't get any sort of response from them. The appeal was unsuccessful. They didn't give him any money. The company sort of made excuses, even though they were giving company colleagues were sending large amounts of money of their savings back to England. So even though they said they didn't have any money, they were sending money back to England as well. So his treasury, his finances were very, very stricken, and things were difficult for him, and he could rarely pay his troops their full salary. Okay. Now, as long as Najaf Khan was successful, this was okay, because people would be like, okay, we'll bite our lips for now, and later on we'll probably get paid as the empire grows as well. However, Najaf Khan began to fall ill, and really this really damaged Shah Alam. He fell ill. He became retired, broken, exhausted in his sick bed in Delhi, and eventually he died in 1782. Mirza Najaf Khan died in 1782 at only the age of 46. Okay. As soon as he died, the royal court began to fall apart. People began to fight. His lieutenants were fighting for power as well. Okay. So, and rapidly, any gains that Mirza Najaf Khan had made had also been lost as well. There was famine, there was monsoons, failed monsoons, and so all of this was bringing real chaos back to this very weak and vulnerable already place of the small empire as well. So Shah Alam then was to reach out to the Marathas again, right? They were busy fighting amongst themselves, but he felt that Mahaji, one of the Marathas, he could reach out to him. And so he said, come over and help me out here a little bit as well. While Mahaji was coming to help him sort of reclaim and sort of get strength in Delhi, and to reinstate himself, make himself established in Delhi, in mid-July 1788, Ghulam Qadir turned against the emperor. Right, this was the son we talked about before, whom he kept with him, he trusted him, and he left Rohila, or he left with his army towards Delhi, and he wanted to avenge his father. He really wanted to avenge his father and take his retribution on the emperor, and make his former captors pay for what they had done to him and to his people. So he was looked after. He was almost like, someone who, it's like the Musa and the Pharaoh story all over again, right? He was the story of Musa, Moses, and Pharaoh. So he was brought up in a royal palace, but now he turned against the emperor, and he was on his way to take back, to seek revenge on the emperor. The book goes into great detail in terms of what happened. He managed to defeat and enter the royal palace. He managed to punish the emperor Shah Alam. In fact, he says here, at one place when they had him locked down, Shah Alam looked straight at Ghulam Qadir and asked, "What, will you destroy those eyes that for a period of 60 years have been assiduously employed in pursuing the sacred Quran?" But the appeal to religion had no effect on the Afghan. Those men threw him down and passed the needle into his eyes. So they gouged his eyes. They poked his eyes with needles as well. Shah Alam's eyes out of his sockets, then the other eye was wrenched out by somebody else, and they say Shah Alam flapped on the ground like a chicken with its neck cut. So they really punished Shah Alam. He didn't die, but he broke a lot of taboos as well. Women who rape, royal women, right? Women who were, forbidden. And this was a taboo that you would never do. Even if you conquered your enemies, you would never mess with their women. And Ghulam Qadir engaged in really, really bad acts. I mean, I don't really want to go into it and read them out. It's not appropriate, some of them. And if you read from page 298 to 301, you'll see the detail there. Anyway, Mahaji Shinda, by the time he arrived there, it was too late. The emperor had, been violated. He'd been harmed. And he did manage to defeat Ghulam Qadir. The emperor was basically put in prison. He was blind. He wasn't much of an emperor, to be honest. Mahaji managed, from the Marathas, managed to get in. They managed to get hold of Ghulam Qadir. He escaped rather, and later on, he was captured. A Brahmin sent him. He was hiding in someone's land, a Brahmin's land, and he said, he told the Marathas where Ghulam Qadir were, and they captured or seized Ghulam Qadir and bound him and locked him in a cage, and they sent him to Mahaji. So he'd come there, and he was kept in a cage. Okay, and then they sort of killed him, and his mutilated body was carried around the city. But by then, Shah Alam had little concern for the world. He wasn't concerned for the world. For all intents and purposes, everything that was left of the Mughal Empire was now completely decimated and destroyed by Ghulam Qadir. He was a final straw that broke the proverbial camel's back as well. And so this is where we are, the desolation of Delhi. It's a very sad ending to the Mughal dynasty or Mughal Empire. We'll continue with chapter 8 in the next lesson. I hope you found that useful. If you have, please do provide some feedback. And a lot of people have provided feedback, and I look forward to hearing from you very, very soon. Take care. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.